It's movie time with John DeSanto and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From the top down to the bottom. He's gonna let you know if you should stay home or if you should go. Might even yell if it's a spectacle. From San Francisco to Long Island. 'Cause nothing's better than a motion picture. The cinema.
It's Movie Time is produced and hosted by John DeSanto. Listen to shows and read reviews online at wcpe.org.
I'm John DeSanto,
And I'm KG Klein.
and this is It's Movie Time. All right, if it doesn't have Sigourney Weaver, how good can it be?
It can be very good, and I'm happy to be able to say that. I was really nervous about this one. For those who don't know, we're talking about Alien Romulus.
That's nice for us to say the title, right?
Yeah, and there are so many of us out there who are very invested in the Alien franchise. I mean, we grew up with them. I was in the theater when I was 15 watching Alien and one of my first R-rated movies and fell in love. And then, of course, James Cameron gave us Aliens, which was just as good but completely different. And now I think we're up to 8 movies with this one.
Well, we were talking Ridley Scott first one, right?
Ridley Scott, well, the first one was written by Dan O'Bannon and Ron Shusett. Dan O'Bannon is somebody I actually knew when I was auditioning in LA. They wrote this script called Star Beast, which through a process of rewrites became known as Alien and was directed by Ridley Scott as a project that was handed to him. He wasn't really involved in the writing of it at all.
Well, you know, people forget movies are visual as well as oral. And visual is where they really can capture you. And I am now, even having seen it decades ago, never forgetting the first image of that phallic monster coming out of the...
And I'm glad you brought that up, because Alien had the best team of artists working on it, I think, in the history of film. They had a group that had been working on a previous movie called Dune, directed by Jardowski, which got scrapped. But they were able to take these artists, which included Mobius, one of the best science fiction artists of the time, and then brought in H.R. Giger, this very eclectic and a little strange artist from Europe, who designed the creature, and he gave us one of the most iconic monsters in the history of cinema. But talking about Alien Romulus, I wanted this to be a great film, and it is a very good film. I'm very happy to say, if you don't have any reservations, go see this movie. It's very nice.
I think you put it third.
I would say it's third in the
I would have to agree.
Yeah.
But it's nowhere near the greatness of the first two.
The gap between the quality of 1 and 2 and the quality of every other Alien film is so wide.
Why is that, Ken?
It is because James Cameron did the sequel, and James Cameron is brilliant at writing sequels. His way of writing sequels is the way that everyone should do sequels. But then after that, it fell into a variety of writers and directors' hands, and it became very eclectic. I can never forgive the first opening scene of Alien 3. It's the worst, I think, opening scene in the history of cinema. Because they kill off the 2 characters that survived Aliens, and we were so invested in these characters.
Let's look at those.
Yeah, we'll talk about those in the podcast.
Yeah, good.
So, but this film is
Alien Romulus.
Alien Romulus is both a sequel and a reboot. Because as you recall, Disney purchased 20th Century Fox a few years ago with the intention of looking at this vast archive of films that Fox had made to see which ones they could plunder for gold and resurrect and come out with new films.
I have to give it to your favorite studio. I was thrilled with Deadpool, as I always am.
Good.
Disney. This is Disney.
This is
And then
Disney.
they give another blood fest here. I mean, this is Disney.
This is
a good point to make.
Disney had been releasing the Prometheus movies under the 20th Century Fox logo to distance themselves from the fact that these are R-rated, very violent movies.
Yes.
But now they no longer have that Fox logo, so they had to release this as one of their own films. But the important thing here is that this is a combination of a sequel and a reboot. I generally don't like reboots. Sequels move the story forward, reboots move the story backwards.
My problem with reboots is one that you know I always have, which is if there's a book and then the movie's made in the book, I don't wanna talk about the book. I don't want that comparison contrast. And with the reboot, it's the same deal, is it not? I mean, people are obsessed with well, they did this and then they did that.
Reboots are almost fan worship. They take the original
Yeah, that's
stories.
true.
I mean, the Ghostbusters reboot is a perfect example. Suddenly, every minor prop that ever appeared in a Ghostbusters movie becomes a major plot point and has magical powers. I mean, the reboot of Star Wars, Luke's lightsaber is now magical, R2-D2 is now magical, and it completely fails the original story. And this is why I say Cameron was such a master with Aliens,
Yeah.
because he wrote a story that took off logically, progressed, but had nothing to do really with the original story. He didn't try to rewrite Alien, and that was what was so good. This one is more of a reboot because this one, the opening 5 minutes of this are just laughable. If you know the Alien timeline, you know the storyline, you are going to be throwing popcorn at the screen for the first 5 minutes because it would never happen this way.
Well, the first acid drip, I was laughing. Here we go.
Yeah.
I know this monster.
Yeah. They do some unforgivable stuff to set up the story so that they can tell the story they want to. The company would never go look for 20 years for wreckage of Nostromo. Nostromo was vaporized. Nostromo had a megaton explosion.
Oh, listen, we need to
Yeah.
give just a thumbnail, and I'm going to try just a little bit by saying, look, you've got some young explorers. There are people who have been downtrodden, a very good indictment of the capitalist society, and they're going off on their own to some dead, it's not even a planet, it's a dead machine, right?
And this is where the story starts working.
Yeah.
Once you discount the laughable first 5 minutes, it starts picking up pace. The company, Wayland Yutani, is much worse than we even were led to believe. It's running like the mines the mining operations back at the turn of the century when the mine owned you.
But look, they want to get out of there. They want to
They're desperate to get out of there.
They want to find the sun. They're going for the sun.
They want to find another planet that's 9 light years away, and all the ships they have access to are short range. But then suddenly they notice this space station drifting in orbit above their planet, and they realize it has cryo chambers. Let's go up there,
Right.
Let's pillage it for the cryo chambers, put them on one of our ships, and get to this other
and
planet.
we're sitting there yelling, "Don't do that!"
And well, and you just know that is going to be that's going to be like a haunted house in space.
Somewhere in the depths of that decrepit old machine are some very bad actors.
It turns out that it's a genetics research lab run by the company that was doing research to turn the aliens into bioweapons.
All right, there are two things I need to ask you before
Yeah.
we get to our podcast. First of all, what do you think about resurrecting Ian Holm?
I was very much against it. For the same
would be.
reason I was against resurrecting Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher and Harold Ramis
What is it
and
about it that
Ghostbusters.
you don't like?
This is the reboot. You don't need that. He didn't need to be there, but the reboot tries to tie itself very closely with the favorite elements of the original
Sure.
film, and it forces things into the story that have no business being there.
Yeah.
You didn't need Nostromo. You certainly didn't need to bring back the original alien that Sigourney Weaver blasted out of the back of the
Did
space
they go and
ship.
pick this supposedly dead species, something
Yeah.
out of there and bring it back? Hey, you don't do that either.
You don't do that either. And I, as I said, I knew Dan O'Bannon, and Dan O'Bannon told me that the life cycle of this thing, it only lives 2 weeks. That was his original idea.
All right.
But so that is the big problem with the reboots, is it tries to force a lot of stuff into the story to tie it to the original movie, and it doesn't need to be there.
Okay, so I tried to get something in even before you did by mentioning Sigourney Weaver. This was,
Yeah.
of course, the first alien that made her career, made her
Yes,
life.
yeah, and then second in Aliens, she became the first actress in history to get $1 million paycheck for doing a movie.
So what does that tell us about Kaylee Spaney?
It tells us that Kaylee Spaney, well, first of all, she got a lot of Sigourney Weaver's lines, and we get to watch her climb into a spacesuit exactly the same way that Sigourney Weaver did.
But I kind of like the kid.
I like her. I like all the characters. There's one character in this movie that I didn't live, that I wish had lived, because I really, really liked her as well. But I think the cast is great.
Well, Spaney played Elvis's
wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, Priscilla Presley
Priscilla, so
in
she
the
was
Priscilla movie.
Yeah, so she's somebody you've seen, but
We have seen her in several
she's
films.
just less. she's unassuming next to Sigourney Weaver.
Well, Sigourney Weaver at 6'1"
Well, I
is a
know,
very
yeah.
towering, imposing figure. And I think she fills the bill nicely. And obviously this movie at the end leaves it open for another sequel. They set the stage, it's very deliberate that there's gonna be another one.
All right, Ken, one of the things that I have to agree with you about the goodness of this film is that I very much like her brother.
Yes, yes.
Played by David Johnson? David Johnson, Jonsson, and he's Andy.
He's Andy.
Sorry for
He
Andy
kind of
Robert.
takes the place of Hicks from Aliens.
Okay.
He's the nice guy who gets the job done, but he's kind of quiet, and he lets the woman speak her mind and assume control if she needs to. He's a supporting character, supporting the female character.
The writers of this did a brilliant job in making him conflicted.
Yeah.
He's an android, but he has his directives.
Oh, okay. I was thinking
You're thinking
about
of somebody else.
I'm thinking about the presumed boyfriend in the movie.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Let's forget him.
Okay, we'll forget
Talk
him.
about Andy.
Okay, we'll talk about Andy is a great character, and this is one of the things. There's several things in this movie that I thought were very original, very clever. There's a scene when they go shooting through some drifting alien blood.
Oh, Ken,
I thought that was fantastic. I love that scene.
Stop. We have to stop now.
I know, we're well over our time.
No, we're not. We're okay.
Yeah, okay.
But before we get to our podcast, and this, you have to go to wcbe.org, and you have to go to Backtalk to hear more of what Ken has to say. But Ken, what do you suggest about this movie, Alien?
I go see it. It's a really well done film. I rank it third out of all the 8 Alien movies. I have issues with the setup of the story. I think it's very, very laughable. But once the story gets going, I'm very pleased with the outcome.
And I was too, even though I know something about, not as much as you do, about these predecessors. But I think it was a very enjoyable end of summer movie, but not for all the family.
No. I wouldn't take any kids to any Alien movie.
Movie time with Johnny Sando and his friends online. So everything is gonna be just fine. From